In just a few weeks, the greatest battle in comic book history will hit the big screen, and it will settle, once and for all, the question we've all been asking since we were kids. Who will win? Batman or Superman? The Dark Knight or the Man of Steel? Night or day? Man or God? Who will win? I'm sorry, did they just spoil the ending of the fight in the trailer? Roll title card, I guess? Hello and welcome to Thorgis Theories, the theory show where I just, no seriously, did they just spoil that in the trailer? I mean, come on, I'm not dumb. I knew they were going to come together and team up in the end anyways, but in the trailer? Jeez. Alright, anyways, yes, you know the deal. Thorgis Theories, the theory show where I go 1 part detective and 10 parts geeky fanboy and take a look at some of the biggest questions in geekery. And as I said, Batman v Superman finally comes out this month, and even if that trailer took some of the wind out of my sail, I'm still super excited for this movie to finally see the biggest throwdown in comic book history. And because of that, I'm here today to finally answer the question that I hear getting shouted in my comic shop at least once a week: who would win a fight, Batman or Superman? Translation, this is going to be one of my most hated videos ever because one of these two fandoms is about to get really ticked at me. So I'll just go ahead and give you all a moment to come up with the perfect insult to call me at the end of this video. We all good? Great. Okay, if you're a fan of Thorgis Theories, then first off, thank you, and secondly, that means that you know that we always have the normal, sane, rational theory, and we always have the crazy theory. But for this one, I think the trailer kind of already spoke for the sane, rational theory that they just end up in a stalemate and Wonder Woman would come in and then they would all team up to fight a larger threat. So instead, for this video, we're going straight to the crazy theory, that one of these two actually would win. That if you actually did have Batman and Superman go toe-to-toe, mano-a-mano, then one of them would be left standing, and we're going to tell you who that would be. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room, which is that Batman is one of the greatest comic book characters ever created. He's got a great story, great universe of characters, and his adventures have proven that he is truly worthy of the title World's Greatest Detective, and that's all without even mentioning his epic arsenal of Bat-themed gadgets at his disposal. And yet, over the past couple of years, partly thanks to the success of the Dark Knight movies, as well as many other factors, the Batman fan base has kind of gone from fandom that really enjoys their character to die-hard army that believes Batman can beat anyone because of prep time.
FEP, your word is I'm Batman syndrome. What is I'm Batman syndrome? When Batman fans try to rationalize that Batman would beat any other superhero because he is Batman and nothing more.
Nobody does that!
So, as much as I hate having to do this, in order to fully judge these two against each other and come up with a winner, we have to start this video off by debunking a few myths about Batman and Superman. And the first myth that we have to debunk is that Batman can beat anyone. This one is simply not true, and rather than stopping this video to cover every situation, I'll just simply run a quick list of everyone who actually could beat Batman. Yeah, I'm just going to let that ride throughout the rest of this video. Okay, while that's going on, let's cover a few of the myths behind Batman being able to beat everyone. The first is, of course, his legendary prep time. This is the biggest myth of them all, that given enough prep time, Batman could beat anyone. Yes, Batman is the world's greatest detective, and given enough time, he could indeed find a way to defeat anyone, but there's a few problems with this. The first being that, yes, given enough time, he could find a way to win, but who says he always has enough time? These aren't duels in the 19th century where you agree to meet with batarangs at dawn. It's a fight. You can't always plan where it's going to begin. And yes, Batman is so paranoid he'd actually come up with plans to take down as many possible characters as he can, so yes, I understand that. But there's still some characters he simply wouldn't research because he's got other stuff to do. And even if he researched a way to beat them, his utility belt isn't an empty vacuum in space and time that he can store everything he needs in there in one pouch. It's a belt with limited space. If he just suddenly got into a fight with, I don't know, Spider-Man, who oddly enough is the #1 fight I get asked about in my store, I don't know why, but it is. But if he got into a fight with Spider-Man, he's not going to have Spider Sense Blocker and Arachnid Man bug spray stored in his belt. You know why? Because his normal day involves him fighting a clown and a dude with 2 faces, neither of which requires a Spider Sense Blocker. It would just be a waste of space for him to keep that on him at all times, just in case he happens to run across Spider-Man. Also, they exist in completely different universes, so there's no reason they would ever come across each other to begin with. I had to throw that in there because someone in the comments was going to bring it up. And speaking of the comment section, I know someone in there is screaming at me right now, but Aaron, you're implying that Batman could be taken by surprise. He can't be taken by surprise. He always takes on his opponents on his terms. He always goes to them fully prepared. And to that I have to say, what? No, that's not even remotely true. Batman gets surprised all the time. Yes, he is indeed a master tactician and the world's greatest detective, but he has detective vision, not omniscience. But okay, I know what you're saying. This isn't a random fight against a random character. This is a fight against Superman. A fight Batman is indeed prepared for, and a fight he's bringing to Superman on his time and under his terms. Cool, gotcha. Alright, so Batman is getting prep time, and he's bringing all the tools he needs. And that should be more than enough to take Superman down because he has kryptonite, right? Yeah, this brings me to myth number 2 that needs debunking, which is that kryptonite doesn't instantly take Superman down. It isn't the Staples easy button for superheroes. Yes, it weakens him, it hurts him immensely, but Superman isn't a hero because he's strong. He's a hero because he pushes through all obstacles. He doesn't win just because he's invulnerable, it's because he has the will to keep going even when he is in pain. I mean, think about it. If Superman was taken out by kryptonite, Lex Luthor would have won years ago. Batman has a ring made of kryptonite. Lex Luthor has a mech suit that runs on the stuff. Superman has a villain whose entire body is actually made of kryptonite, and he still beats him. Yes, kryptonite will keep Batman from getting squashed into paste, but it doesn't mean he'll win. And I'm sure that someone is going to say that kryptonite wouldn't take Superman out, but it would weaken him so Batman could defeat him with his mastery of martial arts, or he would be able to set a trap for Superman with his vastly superior intellect. Again, Batman is one of the greatest fighters and smartest heroes in the DC universe. But this is another myth I have to debunk. I don't know why, but for some reason people think Superman is just some dumb brute. Not so. Superman is actually incredibly smart as well. He understands technology light years ahead of anything seen on Earth, and he's mastered multiple forms of Kryptonian martial arts that nobody else on Earth knows, including Batman. So no, Superman is not some big dumb hero who punches things and then goes on an emotional journey of discovery. He's a guy who can actually get stuff done. At least he is in the comics. We are talking about the movies here, and in Man of Steel, he certainly didn't know anything about fighting other than just throwing punches, and we didn't really see much of his superior intellect. Heck, he barely even talked in that movie, so I'll give you guys that one. But even then, he can still move at roughly the speed of light, and that includes being able to think at that speed. Even if Batman got him in a trap, he could probably think his way through it before Batman could take advantage of the situation. Also, speaking of Superman's speed, I have to bring this up real quick, no pun intended, because I know this is another thing that you guys have been shouting at me in the comments. A few days ago, the Film Theorist, which is an amazing channel. If you guys have not subscribed to that guy, go ahead and do it right here. This is a free plug for him because he is just that good. However, he also did a video a few days ago about Batman vs. Superman in which he said that Batman could win because in the real world they have created robotic muscles that are actually stronger than Superman is portrayed in this film. Now, I'm not going to step in here and say that Batman could not create a robot suit more powerful than Superman. I mean, these are comic book characters we're talking about here. It would be insane for me to say that's not a possibility. However, there is a huge factor that he did not bring up during that analysis, and I have to address it here: Superman's speed. Even if Batman created a suit that was stronger than Superman, Superman would still be immensely faster, and not just physically, but mentally as well. Batman could create the strongest suit in the world, 100 times more powerful than Superman, but what good would it do if it looked like a statue to him? How effective would it be if while he's swinging that first punch, Superman could walk across the street to the deli, make himself a sandwich, eat it, then come back and not even be close to being punched yet? All he has to do is walk behind Batman and then shove him off the side of the building. So yes, even though Batman could create a suit more powerful than Superman, again, doesn't mean he's going to win this one. But okay, there are tons of other myths about Superman and Batman that do need to be debunked, but let's be honest, I'm just stalling at this point. Let's get to what every Batman fan has been screaming at the screen since I started this. Batman can beat Superman because he's done it in the comics. Yes, Batman and Superman have fought each other many times before, and there are 3 big fights that fans love to point to that prove that Batman can win. But there's a problem. None of them actually prove that as well as you might think. I read through each of these fights, and yes, Batman is impressive. He is a giant badass. He does show why he deserves to be on the Justice League and why he's one of the greatest heroes ever written. But he didn't win. Let's start with what was my personal favorite fight from this list, the battle in Batman number 612 as part of the Hush storyline, where Superman was controlled by Poison Ivy and Batman had to stop him. This battle showed off how well Batman is prepared for everything, since he actually fought Superman in Metropolis and was taken completely by surprise, meaning he only had to fight him off with the tools that he had on him. It was a fight that really showed how he could adapt, how well he was prepared for anything, what an amazing fighter he was. But he didn't win. Throughout the fight, he kept saying that he can't stop Superman. He admitted that. He can only stall him. And he even mentions that Clark was fighting back against the mind control, which depowered him greatly. And the fight ends with Superman not being beaten, but instead with Lois being put in danger, and that causes Superman to break free of this mind control. So in the end, this isn't really a trophy for Batman. At best, it's a blue ribbon that says, "Congrats on lasting long enough to not get your butt kicked." The next fight is the most recent one, and it's probably the closest Batman has ever actually come to winning, but it was in the recent in-game storyline where the Justice League was taken over by the Joker formula, and Batman pulled out a giant League-buster Bat-mech built with weapons designed to take each of them down, including a gauntlet with 5 shrunken red suns to take away Superman's powers. I'm not kidding you, Batman has shrunken suns at his disposal. But again, just like with the last fight, Superman was under a villain's influence, meaning that he wasn't really fighting like himself. Batman even said he was lashing out like an animal, meaning that Superman's cunning and intellect were taken out of this fight, meaning he wasn't really fighting Superman. And the battle ends with Superman crushing his machine, but Bats takes him out by spitting in his face a synthetic rubber laced with kryptonite that he keeps in his helmet. Now, again, this is relying on that misconception that one tiny speck of kryptonite could take Superman down, and I've already pretty much addressed that issue earlier in this episode. Sure, it would weaken him, but he wouldn't go down from that. Plus, as I said, Superman was a laughing madman during this fight. If he had been in his right mind, he could have seen Batman preparing the kryptonite gum in his mouth before he spit it with his X-ray vision, or he could have heard it with his super hearing. Unless, of course, Batman has dentures made out of lead, but if that's the case, he's got way bigger problems than Superman. Also, not to nitpick this one too much, but can we just talk about, in order for this plan to work, he had to actually put the kryptonite gum in his mouth? Yeah, that stuff is crazy radioactive. Bats isn't walking away totally unharmed from this one. Oh, now I made myself sad. But okay, let's get into the final battle. The Dark Knight Returns. Quite possibly their most iconic battle of all time. Before this fight, the idea of Batman taking out Superman was insane. But this was the battle that finally put that thought into the minds of readers across the world. This is the one that finally proved that Batman can topple a god, that he can stop the Man of Steel, and it defined that for a generation and even started the trend of prep time and Batman being able to defeat anyone. And not only that, this is the story that will be the basis for the upcoming Batman v Superman film. The fight for this movie was taken almost directly from this book, meaning that if you had to point to one comic as proof that Batman would win in this movie, this would be the one to do it. And after reading through this battle, I just have to say, what the hell are you people talking about? Out of all these fights, this one proves more than any of them that Batman can't beat Superman. Let's break this fight down. The only reason that Batman has even a shred of a chance is because right before this battle, Superman had to stop a nuclear bomb from going off, which significantly depowered him. Not a bomb that was set up by Batman, not a part of Batman's plan. It was pure luck that Batman fought him right after he was immensely depowered. In fact, during the fight, Batman even says it himself that several of the plans he had to take Superman out would have missed if he was fighting him at full strength. From there, Batman lays into him with several weapons, including calling on Green Arrow to fire an arrow made of kryptonite at Superman. Now, I personally would say this already doesn't count because Batman wasn't taking him on one-on-one, but I'll let it slide for now because out of all the problems with this match, that's the least of it. So Batman is pummeling into Superman with all his might, and here's the biggest problem with this fight and why you can't compare it to the upcoming Batman v Superman movie. In the upcoming film, it's the first time they've ever met, meaning they're not friends. They are legitimately fighting each other like villains. However, in this book, yes, Batman is fighting with all his might, but Superman isn't because they're friends. Because they have been friends for so long, and Superman doesn't want to do this. Even if Superman wasn't depowered, all throughout this fight, we keep hearing Superman say that he doesn't want to fight. He and Bruce were friends, and throughout all this, Superman keeps saying, Bruce, don't do this, Bruce. Come on, Bruce, I don't want to fight you. I mean, throughout this entire fight, Superman is mostly just trying to take Batman's armor off. In fact, he only throws 2 punches throughout this entire fight, both of which he was holding back on, and still, one of them ended up breaking all of Bruce's ribs. But forget all that because, in the end, only one thing matters, and it's who was left standing. At the end of the day, who was the last one to fall? And when the dust cleared on this battle, the last one standing was Superman. Seriously, I have no idea why everyone says this fight proves Batman can beat Superman, even ignoring all the other stuff I just listed. Superman being depowered ahead of time, Batman getting help from other heroes, Superman not really wanting to fight him. This fight ends with Batman knocking Superman on the ground, and then Batman dies, while Superman just stood right back up. Little blood on his lips, and that was it. And yes, I know, Batman wasn't really dead, he was faking it, but he was faking it so that Superman would leave him alone to continue his work in secret, and also because he knew that if the fight continued, Superman would get right back up and destroy him. Saying Batman won this fight is like me saying I won a fight with a bear because I played dead until it walked away. So in the end, not only are most of the myths behind why Batman would beat Superman untrue, but all the references for why he'd win from the comics don't even make sense. But there's one other reason why Batman shouldn't beat Superman, because it would be a betrayal of his character. I started this video off by saying what an amazing character Batman is, but let's think about who he is. He's the world's greatest detective. He's the guardian of Gotham. He's a defender of the night. And none of that goes with him being the guy with a giant mech suit that can beat gods. Think about Batman's rogues gallery for a second. They're some of the best villains in comic book history. But do you remember that fight I mentioned where Batman had a mech with shrunken suns in his fist? Yeah, after I see Batman punching Superman with literal suns in the palm of his hand, and that's just something he has lying around the cave, how am I ever supposed to care about him fighting bank robbers? The Riddler is one of my favorite DC villains of all time because he's a clever and crafty genius who can actually match Batman's own intellect. And the Joker is the embodiment of pure chaos. And Two-Face is a tormented figure who represents personal corruption and internal struggle. And when faced with a detective who guards a dark and gritty city by night, that's exactly what they are. But when faced with a guy with a sun mech, yeah, they're a book of Mad Libs, a clown, and a guy with a skin condition. Having Batman be that powerful takes away from the rest of his universe. It takes away from his mission. It takes away from his city. It takes away from all the things that defined him as the character we love. Yes, we love that he has prep time. Yes, we love that he's a detective who can figure out how to take anyone down. But if he actually can beat anyone, then why am I supposed to care about all the stuff that he's dedicated his life to? It just seems too easy. So, yeah, I'm sorry, but in the end, Batman isn't powerful or skilled enough to beat Superman. He hasn't before, and he shouldn't because then he loses what makes him special. And that's why it is the solemn and humble opinion of us here at Thorgis Theories that the winner and champion of Batman v Superman will be Batman.
What a twist!
That's right, we're putting our money on Batman. But why? We just spent all this time setting up Superman, putting Batman down. Why would we vote for him now? Because there's one element of these characters that we didn't discuss, and that is just that they're characters. That these are just stories. They don't always have to make sense, and the facts don't always have to add up. They just have to be written to prove a point, to show arcs and growth, and to create truly imaginative and emotional journeys. But also to entertain, to create a tale, and to craft a battle that will have us on the edge of our seats, and a battle where a mere man has to use all his resources and knowledge to defeat a god is a way more interesting story than Superman punches Batman until he doesn't get up anymore. Look back at those three stories that everyone references when they talk about Batman being able to defeat Superman. Batman and Superman have actually tussled far more than just those 3 times, but the reason why those 3 are always referenced are because they make the best stories. There are many times when Superman has beaten Batman, but those fights aren't memorable because they were over with in roughly 5 seconds. And I don't care how much of a die-hard DC fan you are, if you went to this movie and the fight was over with before you could get back from the concession stand, you'd be pissed. Seriously, I don't care how much you love Superman, you don't want Superman to win, because the story where he wins is roughly this. Followed by 5 minutes of Superman's phone ringing, followed by, you have a collect call from Clark? Clark, you jerk! You knocked me into the next county, you jerk! Oh god, I can see my ribs poking out. Oh god, it hurts so much. Alright, listen Clark, I'm going to patch this up. Then I'm going to hop on a bus back to Metropolis, and when I get there, it's round 2. You got that? I'm coming for you, Boy Scout. You hear me? Wait, no, don't hang up, no! And I said that if Batman defeated Superman, it would be a betrayal of his character, and it would, but at the same time, it would mean something even greater. Superman is an unstoppable force, and on some level, people need to know that Batman, a mere human, could win that fight. Don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily agree with this, because to me, the whole point of Superman is that he's the guy that you don't have to worry about turning evil, but I can understand people having a need for a human being able to save them in case something went wrong. And preferably a human other than Lex Luthor. There we go. And after Man of Steel, that kind of is the feeling many people have. And that brings me to the biggest reason why Batman needs to win this fight. Because of Man of Steel. After the destruction that happened at the end of that film, many audiences, even the ones who liked the movie, said, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I'm okay with characters who just obliterate a city so recklessly. And when you watch this trailer, the ramifications of that fight are going to be a huge part of this movie. It's the reason why people don't trust Superman. It's why Batman wants to fight Superman to begin with. In a way, Batman is the voice of the audience who felt disturbed by the ending of Man of Steel. The writer and director didn't plan on audiences feeling that way about Man of Steel, but after seeing the blowback, it's very clear they structured this movie to be an answer to that. And having Batman come in here and kind of be the answer to all this and being the guy that we root for kind of makes a lot of sense. And in the end, that's really the most important part of this story. Who are we supposed to root for? I mentioned all the problems I had with the fight in The Dark Knight Returns, but there's another one that I didn't bring up, and that's that story was written by Frank Miller, a man who is outspoken about how much he doesn't like Superman, how much he doesn't understand the character, and how much he just wanted to see the big blue Boy Scout get beat down. And between the loyal army of Batman fans and the feelings audiences had towards Superman after the last movie, most of the people going into this film are in the same boat. And yes, as a Superman fan, that kind of hurts me, but honestly, yeah, I can understand why that's how it has to be. I mean, for crying out loud, this is the sequel to a Superman movie, and they still gave Batman top billing. This studio wants you to go in there cheering for the Dark Knight. So, there you go. I told you guys I was going to offend one half of the fandom, and instead I probably just upset everyone. Hooray, a new personal best. But I know that many of you are going to disagree with me and have your own theories about this or points that you want to bring up, so I'll tell you what. I've never done this before, but I'm going to do it here. At the end of this month, when this movie comes out, I'll make a video where I read your comments and questions and arguments about this theory and this movie. That's right, never done it before, but what better time than now to start, because I know there will be a lot to discuss about this. So leave your comments that you want me to read, and I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. So make sure to come back next month for another Thorgis Theory from another corner of the geeky universe, and stay tuned the rest of this month to this channel as I cover more about this movie, including reviews, spoiler discussions, and more. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure to share this video, make sure to leave a thumb up, and make sure to come back next time.